Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It's been another difficult day for thousands of rail passengers in the north and southeast of England. There have been yet more delays and cancellations after the major disruption caused by new timetables last month. The Transport Secretary, Grayling, says the widespread disruption is unacceptable and he has announced an independent inquiry into what's gone wrong. Our transport correspondent Victoria Fritz reports from Manchester.
It's the most basic promise to passengers, but 3 weeks on, delivering a functioning timetable remains a commitment that the industry cannot keep. The new schedule has now been scrapped and replaced by emergency measures.
It's a structured reduction in capacity to give us the scope to train more drivers, but also, most importantly, give our customers more certainty about which trains will be cancelled.
Scary, isn't it?
Little certainty for Rebecca, recently diagnosed with breast cancer and trying to carry on as normal. She started a course of radiotherapy 3 weeks ago.
It's just been an incredibly stressful time, so I've decided to now, because of this, take some time off work because I'm supposed to be recovering every day from the radiotherapy, and I feel like it's had an impact on my health and I need to make sure that I get better.
The problems in the north actually started with the tracks. Network Rail failed to upgrade them before the new timetables came in. It meant they were published very late, drivers didn't have enough time to learn the new routes, and new trains that were due to start running couldn't join the service. Industrial relations have made things worse, and the situation in the south is even more complex.
The government signed off on a new franchise that the track operator warned was completely unworkable. It turns out they were right. Govia Thameslink has had to remove another 230 trains from operation. Vicky Orvice uses the Thameslink service from Harpenden.
It sounds laughable, but it was actually more relaxing to sit in a chemotherapy chair, being looked after by lovely NHS staff in a quiet corner of the hospital and read a book, and that was peaceful compared to a 3-hour journey.
Today, meetings with MPs about the cancellations were themselves cancelled at late notice. The Transport Secretary faced hostile questions from MPs.
Does he accept that his unwillingness to accept any responsibility for this actually undermines efforts for him to put it right?
It's simply, Mr. Speaker, about everyone in the industry and everyone in my department working to make sure we have a stable timetable for passengers, and that right now is the most important priority.
It should have been a moment of celebration, but the most ambitious upgrade in decades is lost in what will be remembered as the biggest failure for rail in a generation.
Here in Manchester, people are taking the situation into their own hands. One commuter's petition has already attracted over 9,000 signatures. People who want answers to what they see as persistent failure and a service that is worthy of the name.
Victoria, thank you.
Now, the government has described the Northern Rail timetable fiasco, which left passengers stranded and delayed, as totally unacceptable. Our North of England correspondent Claire Fallon has spoken to one Northern Rail worker who says he feels ashamed to wear the uniform and that staff knew the new timetable probably wouldn't work before it was introduced.
What do you do to solve the problem of cancelled trains? It's obvious. You cancel some of them.
What are you expecting today?
Delays, cancellation.
2 weeks on from the new timetables, today a new timetable. 165 fewer trains to give the company operating them a better chance of getting them to run. That was Northern's theory anyway.
It's ridiculous. Nobody knows where they're going, platforms are changed, it's horrendous.
But there were still cancellations, and in some places, not trains, but buses.
I've got no idea what's going on, and I don't think anybody at Northern has got any idea of what's going on.
You're there in your Northern uniform. How do you feel wearing the Northern uniform at the moment?
Well, I'm absolutely ashamed. Ashamed that we can't offer a decent service to the customers. In my 40 years of being associated with the railways, I've never seen a service like it in my life.
Since the timetables changed, John, which isn't his real name, has spent hour after hour saying sorry. Sorry your train's late. Sorry it's so full you can't get on it. Sorry you're stranded. Now, John's had enough and is speaking out. He's worried it could cost him his job, though, so we're not identifying him.
What has it been like dealing with the customers over the last couple of weeks?
Some are very, very angry, and they vent their anger on us frontline staff.
2 weeks ago was meant to mark the beginning of a new age for rail travel in the north. The new timetables promising more trains, more routes. Oh, the irony. Northern says it's down to a lack of drivers, a knock-on from timetables being finished late because of improvement works being delayed. The result? Thousands of cancelled trains, many thousands of people whose lives have been thrown into chaos.
But was all of this stuff foreseeable?
Oh yes, we believe it was. We knew it probably wouldn't work.
Who do you blame?
Governments. They don't bother with us up north. We're nobody up north. Everything is spent in London and the South East.
What do you think of the way that the Transport Secretary has dealt with this?
He hasn't done enough. Mr Grayling, I reckon he should go.
But in fairness, the problems aren't just in the north. There have been cancellations and delays for Govia Thameslink, with pressure growing for the Transport Secretary to do something. Today, not exactly action, but words at least, as we finally heard from Chris Grayling.
I want to be absolutely clear, Mr Speaker. Passengers on these franchises are facing totally unsatisfactory levels of service. And it is mine and my department's #1 priority to make sure the industry restores reliability for passengers to an acceptable level as soon as possible. I want to assure the passengers affected that I share their frustration about what's happened, and I'm sorry this has taken place.
And another key player also broke cover today. After 2 weeks turning down interviews, the boss of Northern fronted up to say sorry, especially to those paying for a train but now getting a replacement bus.
I'm not sure it's fair, but what we're saying is it's consistent with what the rail service would do if it reduces services for engineering works or for cancellations normally. So it's very consistent. Because we were trying to deliver a timetable that had been prepared really at short notice, that was too hand to mouth because we weren't aware of the shortfall until the very last minute, literally the week before the timetable started.
Today, on top of the emergency slimmed down timetable, Northern Rail has fully or part cancelled about 200 services. In some places, it has been a bit better, but a bit better compared to how it's been still amounts to a rail service that's not good enough.
And for 2 weeks now, as their passengers will need no reminding, new timetables have caused chaos on Northern Rail and Thameslink. Finally, the Transport Secretary, Chris Grayling, faced MPs about it and the shunting of the blame started. He said he'd been assured 3 weeks ago by both companies that the new timetables would be fine. Now, he said he would investigate who was directly responsible. You, Labour MPs, shouted back at him.
The blame was travelling in all directions today, from the Transport Secretary to the train company bosses to Network Rail, which runs the track, none of them wanting to find themselves at the end of the line.
We are sorry to announce that the 08:30 Northern service to Highton has been cancelled.
Whoever deserves to apologise, passengers just want an end to the sorry state of services. An emergency timetable improved things a little on Northern Rail today, but only 3/4 of the reduced trains arrived on time. Many had to take buses.
8:05 train was cancelled, so I have to wait for the 8:38 trains. It's quite frustrating.
3 cancelled trains we waited for. Disgusting.
We need to establish who is directly responsible for the decision makings that have been got wrong here.
But today the Transport Secretary pushed the blame onto the train companies, promising compensation and an inquiry to try and divert angry MPs.
Stop passing the buck and take full responsibility for this chaos.
People's private lives are being destroyed, and this whole thing is an absolute disaster and must be put right.
We will absolutely hold the operator to the terms of their contractual obligations. And I will not be afraid, Mr Speaker, to take action, enforcement action, where it is necessary to do so, but it is right to go through the process of the inquiry and understand where fault truly lies.
We already know some of the reasons for the problems. You can't run trains without a track or a timetable, and Network Rail failed to get either of those ready in time across much of the network. Today there were no delays in blaming them too.
Our training plan up to January was on track to deliver the timetable, but the short notice change to that and the rewriting of it has thrown up new and unusual driver training requirements.
And today, Network Rail's boss was taking some responsibility, admitting to me he may have to go.
We are sorry, we're repentant about how it's occurred, and we're working really hard to fix it.
Some people are looking at losing their jobs because of the delays they've faced. Shouldn't you lose your job?
Maybe I should, maybe somebody should, but actually the important thing for the moment is to keep on trying to fix it.
Tonight, passengers are left going round in circles, if anywhere at all. Those responsible for their misery are all promising to take action, just not the blame. Paul Brandt, News at 10.